Last video, the program crashed, and I'm not really mad at it because I think it crashed because of the size of my file. So I had been working with a 300 DPI file that was actually very, very big. So that would be a warning to you to not work with the circle design tool with a giant file because it really can't handle it. So I'm going to go ahead and not go back to that point. I'm going to move forward with some of the tools like the outline tool. So I am going to crop my image because I don't really need to strain the system to show you this. But I'm going to crop it to 2 moths, and I'm going to make the moths different colors. So I'm going to add a couple of colors and use the stencil tool to change the colors of the moths. So, whoops. So I'm going to go ahead and use the designate stencil tool on the display toolbar to protect the white ground. I'm going to just randomly draw into that area. Nothing pretty. And this one, so that you can see how the drawing tool works with the stencil tool. Okay. And then I'm going to release the stencil by clicking right on the space with no name and hitting clear stencil. And then I'm actually going to add another color to make some really obvious outlines. So this is going to be a very different color, like a bright blue. Bring this down so it's easier to see. So I'm going to use the outline tool here. The color to be outlined, I'm going to say let's outline the orange, and I want the outline to be this obnoxious blue that I made. And I want the thickness of the outline to be visible to you. So I'm going to make it 3 pixels. And I'm only going to have it happen on the top and the left. So again, it's an orange, it's going to get outlined with blue, and it's going to be 3 pixels on the top and the left. And you can see what happens here. So it basically literally went in and outlined that color. If I had a solid shape, which I can draw in the border here, let's say I have a solid shape like this, and I'm going to say, let me do the exact same thing. It's going to look very different than it would with this very textured, complicated shape. I can also say, let me make it a much bigger outline. And it's happening here really cleanly, and here sort of messing with the design. So the outline tool can be really helpful, but it obviously has different effects if it's textured versus solid. The next thing that I'm going to do is a skeleton tool. Now this might crash the computer too, in which case I'll have to make yet another video. But the skeleton tool basically shrinks a color. So if I say I want to skeleton the blue, meaning I want it to shrink down and I want it to stay blue, but I want it to be really, really thin. So that's the thinnest amount that it can go. And hit apply. It's basically going to shrink all of that blue down to the thinnest possible size. You can see there's 1 pixel of it left. I've never really used this for anything because it just doesn't have a consistent line weight, but it's good to know that it's there. Some people use it if they're doing a sketch and they want to have the line work be really, really thin to work on top of. You can also thicken a color, or it doesn't have to be a line, it can be a color. So I'm going to thicken the pink by a bunch. I'll go all the way up and hit apply. And it spread out that pink. This I find very helpful a lot of the time. I want to fill in little pixels. I want to soften my shape, and that's how I would do it. I'm going to skip the global motif fill, and I'm going to go to the ECOT tool, which is a kind of silly. I shouldn't say that. It's actually helpful if you're trying to make an ECOT effect, but we'll go in and look how it looks. It's very, very subtle right now. So I'm going to zoom in and show you the effect of it. It has a little line there. So if I wanted a heavier effect, I could say, let me do vertical. Let me do a higher shuffle. I can increase the randomness. and hit process, and you can see how it shifted everything to an ECOT effect. Maybe that is kind of helpful. Anyway, so I'm not going to do the global multi-motif fill, but I am going to use the smooth tool. The smooth tool basically says, what color do you want to smooth? And I'm going to say the orange, and how many passes. So I'm going to say do 3 passes of smoothing on the orange. And you can see it actually smoothed all of the colors. You can also do independent smoothing on the drawing toolbar up here. So zone smoothing would be me literally clicking in an area and smoothing it, but it's not as effective, as you can see. And the last thing I'm going to do here is the smudge tool. This smudge tool also happens on the drawing toolbar. On the drawing toolbar, you're physically handling it. I'm going to have to change my pencil size so you can actually see it. You're physically handling the smudging. When you use it on the repeat toolbar, it's happening to the entire design. So let me say, do a ton of smudging, big width, process, and it should smudge the entire design, which again can be really helpful if you're trying to do some optical blending with your image. So that is the last repeat toolbar video, and we can go into questions about that after you've done this.